Welcome to Loud and Brave. I'm Charlie, and today is September 11th, 2025. The show that I'm going to do today, the podcast I'm going to do, is not the one that I intended on doing. I had already put one together, but we experienced a double tragedy yesterday in our nation that I felt like I couldn't just not speak about. And there's lots of people speaking about the horrific public assassination of Charlie Kirk yesterday. And there was a school shooting as well, another school shooting. And of course, as always happens when something tragic and awful like this occurs, in our nation, there are those that immediately attempt to politicize it and use it for political purposes. I think that is a disservice to the victims and their families. I don't think that it moves the ball forward or brings healing. And I think the proof that I'm right about that is that people continue to do it, and we continue to have tragedies such as the ones that we experienced yesterday. It was just a few weeks ago that another person killed two children and injured more in a Catholic school, in a church, actually, that was part of a Catholic school. This podcast is called the Loud and Brave Podcast because I believe that it is vitally essential that people who have a platform be willing to be courageous and to be vocal. Charlie Kirk was both of those things. But whether you agreed with his politics or his faith, he was also somebody's son, as were these children. He was also somebody's husband, and he was somebody's two small children's father. What has happened, and I've talked about this before, but we have to keep talking about it until it is no longer an issue in our nation, is that there are elements on the left and the right, on the extremes of both, that dehumanize people who are different than them. They dehumanize people who don't agree with them. It's become okay to talk about people as if they're less than human. And when we do that, it devalues their life. And the natural outcome of that is that when their life is devalued, then their life is easily taken by people who no longer see them as human, but see them as an enemy or less than human. We know that at the school shooting that happened a few weeks ago, that the shooter had written on his weapon, "Kill Trump." There was a definite ideology there. Apparently, this person was part of the trans community. Now, I'm not saying that all trans people are mentally ill or that all trans people want to kill President Trump, but this one apparently did. And apparently history has already proven that there is a contingent within that community that has those sentiments. Now, here's what I would say to the people on the left who are in the middle left. And I would say this to the people on the right who are in the middle right as well. But right now we're dealing with shooters who are on the middle left, or on the extreme of the left, it appears, as this shooter apparently was too, based on the information that we've seen come out from the FBI this morning. And the people that are in the middle have got to speak up and say, this does not represent us. We do not support this. We have to give a strong rebuke when there are people in our camp, but maybe on the extreme fringes of our camp, who are doing awful things. The people in the middle have got to speak up. We've got to say, this is wrong. Instead of what I have seen on MSNBC and other news outlets and other people who are on the left, demonizing the victim, demonizing Charlie Kirk, saying things like it was his rhetoric that caused this. Charlie Kirk was someone who encouraged civil discourse. He went on Bill Maher's show, for God's sake, someone who is in many ways the antithesis of the things that Charlie believes in his ideology, but they are both patriots. They both believe in free speech, and they had an amazing conversation, respectful, dignified. They saw each other's humanity, and this is what we need more of. We've been robbed by the events of yesterday. The children whose lives were snuffed out, we've been robbed of the promise of their future. In Charlie Kirk, we've been robbed of a great patriot. For me, who is a Christian, a brother in Christ, and for our society, someone who was advocating for civil discourse in a culture and a climate where we desperately need more of it. So I encourage those right now, because these current events have been perpetrated by people who are on the extreme left. So I'm pleading with people who are in the middle on the left. Please come out and vocally condemn this. And I want to say this to the people on the right, the middle right. If, God forbid, in the coming weeks or months or years ahead, we have some horrific events perpetrated by people on the fringes of the right, for God's sake, the people in the middle have got to condemn them and speak up. They've got to be vocal and be courageous. Charlie Kirk was that. My phone was going crazy this morning. People texting, calling me before I could even get out the door this morning to go do the things I had to do, with people who are experiencing yesterday's events in a way that's different. It feels like an X marks the spot moment. My hope and my prayer is that, as terrible as it is, what happened yesterday, that somehow this brings desperately needed change to the dialogue and the culture in America right now. I don't know how we can continue on this path of dehumanizing and demonizing people who are different than us and who disagree with us. It has to stop somewhere. It's the very thing that Charlie was living his life for. He lived his life for his faith, for the gospel of Jesus Christ. And as a patriot, he was doing everything he could every day. In fact, he was doing that when it occurred yesterday. He was trying to bring civility among people who disagreed, to help people see each other and hear each other instead of what we saw yesterday. Charlie once said that when we stop talking, then we have civil war. I think he's right, and I think we've got to take that seriously. So friends, I know this is a very somber and not a cheery and uplifting podcast, but whether you're a religious person or not, I hope that if you're not a person who prays, that then we just start doing things and speaking things that bring love and compassion and kindness and civility back to the public square, back to dialogue, particularly when it pertains to people who are different than us, who think differently than us. We're all human. We all bleed. We're all someone's son or daughter. We're all someone that others love. And we have value, and we must value each other, and we must speak up for that. Otherwise, we'll lose. We all will lose if we don't. Be brave.